Ethan opened his eyes slowly, his head heavy and his vision blurry. The air around him was cold, and the smell of metal filled his nose. He tried to move his arms, but something stopped him. Glowing cuffs wrapped tightly around his wrists. When his sight cleared, he realized he was not in his small apartment on Earth anymore. He was in a strange, round room with shining silver walls, strange blue lights, and no windows. Before he could even speak, a shadow appeared in front of him. It was a girl, at least she looked like a girl. Her skin had a soft silver glow. Her hair was deep violet, and her large golden eyes seemed to stare straight into his thoughts. She was tiny, barely 4 feet tall, but something in the way she stood made her presence feel dangerous. She wore a black and gold uniform, and her boots clicked softly as she walked toward him. "You're awake," she said in a calm, clear voice. "I am Commander Lyra, leader of this vessel." Ethan blinked in disbelief. You're the commander?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. Lyra tilted her head, almost smiling. "And you are my new asset," Ethan laughed nervously. "Asset? No, you've got the wrong guy. I'm just a mechanic from New Houston." But Lyra didn't laugh. Instead, she turned her head slightly and spoke a single sharp word in her alien language. Instantly, a massive alien guard, nearly twice Ethan's height, entered the room. The guard knelt down on one knee in front of Lyra, head bowed in deep respect. Ethan's smile faded. This tiny alien girl had just ordered a giant warrior to kneel, without even raising her voice. "You see, size is irrelevant," she said softly, walking around him like a predator circling prey. "What matters is control, and I control everything here." Ethan pulled at the glowing cuffs. "Look, I don't know why I'm here, but I think you've made a mistake." Lyra stepped closer, her golden eyes locking onto his. "There are no mistakes," she whispered. "Only choices. And consequences." Ethan tried to stay calm. "All right, Commander. What do you want from me?" Lyra didn't answer right away. Instead, she tapped a small device on her wrist, and the cuffs around his arms disappeared. Ethan rubbed his wrists, ready to bolt toward the door, but the moment he took a step, his entire body froze. He couldn't move a finger. It was as if invisible chains had wrapped around him. Lyra walked up to him and gently touched his shoulder. "You will not leave this room unless I allow it," she said, her voice quiet but filled with authority. A moment later, she released him, and Ethan stumbled forward, breathing heavily. What was that?" he asked, his voice shaking. "My mind-link control," she replied. "A human body is easy to override." Ethan swallowed hard. This tiny alien girl wasn't just dangerous, she could control him completely without lifting a hand. Lyra turned toward the door. "Come," she ordered. Ethan hesitated, but something told him it was useless to resist. She led him down a metallic hallway lined with strange glowing symbols. Alien crew members passed by, all taller than her, but every single one bowed their head respectfully as she walked past. Ethan noticed the way they avoided looking at him, as if he were something dangerous or already doomed. They entered a large chamber with a glowing table in the center. The surface showed a holographic map of stars and moving ships. "This," Lyra said, pointing at a flashing red sector, "is where you will be useful." Ethan shook his head. "I'm not a soldier. I'm not a spy. I fix engines, that's it." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "Exactly. A human mechanic who can understand both Terran and alien systems is rare." She leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And I need rare things." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "Why me?" he asked again. Lyra straightened her back, her tone suddenly cold. "Because you have something no one else on this ship has: knowledge from Earth, and the courage to use it." He almost laughed. "Courage? You don't even know me." Lyra smiled faintly. "I will." Before Ethan could argue further, the ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring through the corridors. Lyra didn't even flinch. She pressed her wrist device, and the alarm stopped instantly. Then she looked at him with a calm expression. "Your first test has arrived," she said. "Pass it, or you will not see the next sunrise." Ethan stared at her. Small, calm, and only 4 feet tall, but somehow he believed every word she just said. Ethan followed Lyra through the narrow corridors of the alien ship. Every step felt heavier than the last. The walls hummed with a low, constant vibration, and strange lights pulsed in rhythmic patterns. Crew members passed by silently, their eyes never meeting his. It was as if they all knew something about him that he didn't. Lyra walked ahead without looking back, her short figure moving with purpose. Even though she was small, every alien they passed gave her space. No one dared to block her path. Ethan couldn't decide if it was respect or fear. They reached a round chamber with no doors, only smooth silver walls. In the center stood a floating sphere, glowing faintly blue. "This is the control nexus," Lyra said. Placing her hand against the sphere, the walls suddenly came alive, showing different rooms of the ship: engine rooms, weapon stations, cargo bays. It was like the ship itself had eyes everywhere. Lyra turned to him. "You may walk freely here, Ethan, but understand this. My will follows you." Ethan frowned. "Your will? What does that even mean?" She didn't answer. Instead, she raised her hand slightly. Ethan's legs locked in place. No pain, no force, just total stillness. He tried to move but couldn't even shift his weight. "What the hell?" he gasped. "Mind link control." She said calmly, "You are in my network now." She waved her hand, and suddenly his body was free again. Ethan staggered forward, breathing hard. "So you can freeze me whenever you want?" he asked. Lyra's golden eyes glimmered. "Whenever I need to." Ethan rubbed his wrists nervously. He realized that the glowing cuffs from before had only been a symbol. The real chains were invisible, and they were inside him now. Lyra began walking again, leading him deeper into the ship. They passed through the crew quarters where alien soldiers trained with strange weapons. A massive alien with armored skin gave him a look filled with contempt. But when Lyra glanced his way, the soldier lowered his head instantly. Ethan noticed something else. The crew moved in perfect order. Every step, every movement seemed timed. It was like they were all connected. Maybe in the same way Lyra had connected to him. They reached the engine bay, a massive room glowing with shifting streams of energy. The sound was a deep, steady thrum. "This is where you start proving your worth," Lyra said. She pointed to a panel on the wall where a warning light was flashing red. Ethan stepped closer, recognizing the universal danger symbol. "Plasma containment breach?" he said. Lyra gave a slight nod. "If it fails, this ship will be torn apart in seconds." Ethan felt a surge of adrenaline. He knelt by the panel and opened it, revealing a tangle of wires and energy conduits. The design was alien, but he spotted elements from old human tech. "That's strange," he muttered. "This is half Terran engineering." Lyra's voice was calm. "That is why you are here." Working quickly, Ethan rerouted power to the auxiliary lines. The heat from the core was intense, sweat dripping from his forehead. A faint hum turned into a deep roar, and the floor vibrated beneath him. Lyra stood silently nearby, watching every move he made, and gritted his teeth and pulled a damaged conduit free. It sparked dangerously close to his face. He replaced it with a spare from his belt pouch, sealing the connection. The warning light flickered, then turned green. Ethan exhaled sharply. "Done." Lyra didn't clap or cheer. She simply said, "Acceptable? Acceptable?" Ethan asked in disbelief. "I just saved your ship." Lyra stepped closer. "No. You saved yourself." Her words cut deeper than he expected. "What's that supposed to mean?" he demanded. "It means," she said softly, "failure would have ended you before I needed to waste the effort." Ethan stared at her. He couldn't decide if she was the coldest leader he'd ever met or the most cunning. She turned toward the exit. "Follow me." Ethan hesitated but walked after her. He noticed something odd when he thought about running in the opposite direction. His legs twitched but didn't obey. She wasn't even looking at him. And yet he couldn't make himself escape. As they moved through the halls again, Ethan began to understand something terrifying. She didn't just control his movements when she wanted. She had programmed his body to obey her automatically. It wasn't slavery in the physical sense, it was something deeper. A quiet command buried in his nervous system. Lyra led him to a viewing deck. A large window showing the stars stretching endlessly ahead. "Tomorrow," she said, "we enter hostile space." Her voice was calm, almost casual. "You will help me recover something that belongs to my people." Ethan shook his head. "And if I say no?" Her golden eyes met his, and for a second, he felt his chest tighten. "Then your body will walk into the vacuum without hesitation," she said quietly. The way she said it, he believed her completely. Ethan stood there, staring at the endless void beyond the glass, small, 4 feet tall, delicate looking. Yet Commander Lyra had wrapped invisible chains around his mind and body, and there was no way to break free. Ethan didn't sleep that night. He sat in the small metal room Lyra had assigned him, staring at the ceiling. The bed was cold, the lights dim, but his mind was racing. Every time he thought about running away, the memory of his legs freezing in place came back. It wasn't fear of being caught. It was the knowledge that she could stop his heart if she wanted to. The next morning, the door slid open without a sound. Lyra stepped inside, wearing the same black and gold uniform, her violet hair neatly tied back. "It's time," she said simply. "For what?" Ethan asked, his voice dry from lack of sleep. "To see if you are worth keeping," she replied. He followed her to the engineering bay again, but this time, the glowing table in the center showed a live feed from deep inside the ship. A flashing red alert pulsed on the display. "Section 9, she said. "Plasma regulators are failing again, but this time, the backup is offline." Ethan frowned. "Then you need a repair crew, not me." Lyra's eyes didn't blink. "You are the repair crew." She handed him a small toolkit, but the weight was heavier than it should have been. Ethan opened it and froze. Inside were alien tools with sharp edges and glowing symbols, and a timer counting down from 6 minutes. "What's this?" he asked sharply. "Your deadline," she said. "If you fail, Section 9 will vent into space, and you will be inside it." Ethan looked at her in disbelief. "You're testing me by risking my life?" Lyra's voice was calm, almost bored. "If you cannot work under pressure, you are useless to me." The deck vibrated beneath them, the ship groaning from stress. "Go," she ordered. Ethan sprinted down the hall, the sound of the timer ticking in his ears. Crew members moved out of his way without a word, some giving him pitying looks. Section 9 was dimly lit, the air hotter than the rest of the ship. Steam hissed from vents, and the smell of burning metal filled the corridor. The regulator chamber was worse. Sparks flew in every direction. Ethan ducked under a burst of steam, his skin prickling from the heat. He opened the panel and saw the problem immediately. 3 main conduits had ruptured, but the alien tech didn't fit together like human systems. Every connection seemed backward, as if designed to confuse outsiders. The timer in the toolkit read 4:38. Ethan took a deep breath and started rerouting power to the sidelines. The heat burned through his gloves, but he kept going. He could feel sweat running down his back, his heartbeat pounding in his ears. Another burst of steam shot past his face, and for a moment he thought about giving up. But something about Lyra's expression earlier, the way she never doubted herself, made him push harder. 3:12 remaining. He reached for a glowing coil, but the moment he touched it, electricity surged through his arm. Pain shot up to his shoulder, and he bit back a scream. His vision blurred for a second, but he forced himself to keep working. He replaced the coil with a spare, locking it into place. 1:48 remaining. The last conduit wouldn't fit. Its connectors were warped from the heat. Ethan grabbed a tool he didn't recognize, pressed the glowing edge to the metal, and watched it reshape instantly. "Got you," he muttered, snapping it into place. The warning lights flickered, then turned green. The timer stopped at 0:27. Ethan collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. His hands shook from adrenaline. He had done it, but barely. The door opened, and Lyra stepped inside without any sign of hurry. "You survived," she said. Ethan glared at her. "Yeah. Thanks for almost killing me." Her lips curved slightly. "If that was enough to kill you, you were never worth my time." He wanted to shout at her, but something stopped him. She wasn't just testing his skills. She was testing if he would break. And deep down, he knew she would keep pushing until she found his limit. Lyra walked closer, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Good work," she said softly. It wasn't loud praise, but it felt strange, like a rare piece of sunlight breaking through clouds. Ethan didn't know why, but he felt a flicker of pride despite himself. They walked back to the command deck. The crew's eyes followed him, now not with pity but with curiosity. Whispers followed in alien tongues. It hit him then. He had just passed some kind of unspoken trial. But at what cost? As they reached the viewing deck, Lyra spoke without turning to him. "Tomorrow, you will join me on a surface mission." Ethan frowned. "Surface mission?" She nodded. "A retrieval, deep in hostile territory." "And if I say no?" he asked, already knowing the answer. Her smile was slow, almost gentle. "Then your body will walk anyway." Ethan looked out at the endless stars. It didn't matter that she was only 4 feet tall. She was the most dangerous person he had ever met. And now, whether he liked it or not, he was part of her game. Asterisk. The next day came faster than Ethan expected. He barely had time to eat before Lyra appeared at his door. Her uniform perfect, her golden eyes sharp. "Here up," she said, tossing a small bag at him. Ethan caught it and looked inside. Protective gloves, a breathing mask, and a strange curved blade that shimmered in the light. "What's this?" "A foal," he asked. "For when things get close," Lyra replied without expression, as they walked toward the hangar. Ethan noticed the change in atmosphere. Crew members were quieter than usual, some looking at him with a kind of sorrow. He leaned toward one of them, whispering, "What's on this planet?" The alien just shook his head and muttered, "No one comes back." Before turning away, the hangar doors opened, revealing a small shuttle waiting for them. Its hull was covered in scratches and scorch marks. "This is it?" Ethan asked, raising an eyebrow. Lyra stepped aboard without hesitation. "It only needs to get us down. Whether it gets us back depends on you." The shuttle lifted off, leaving the safety of the larger ship. Through the window, Ethan saw the planet grow closer. Its surface was dark and jagged, covered with swirling red clouds. Lightning flashed inside the storms, giving the land an angry glow. "What exactly are we looking for?" he asked. "A relic," Lyra said simply. "It belonged to my people before the war." "That doesn't sound so bad," Ethan muttered. Lyra's gaze flicked to him. "The relic is guarded by machines older than your species, and they do not understand mercy." The shuttle entered the atmosphere, turbulence shaking them violently. Ethan gripped the seat, staring out at the sharp black cliffs and rivers of molten rock below. They landed on a small plateau, the shuttle's engines whining in protest. The moment the ramp lowered, the air hit him hot, dry, and heavy. He put on the breathing mask, feeling the filter hum to life. Lyra moved ahead with quick, precise steps. Even here, in a place where the ground cracked underfoot, she looked completely in control. Ethan followed, scanning the rocky terrain. Shapes moved in the shadows, too fast to identify. They reached a wide stone gate carved into the side of a cliff. Ancient symbols glowed faintly on its surface. Lyra placed her hand against one of the symbols, and it lit up brighter. A deep rumble shook the ground as the gate slowly opened. Beyond it lay a dark tunnel, the air inside colder than outside. Ethan hesitated at the entrance. "Ladies first?" he joked weakly. Lyra didn't smile. "Stay close, or you won't stay alive." The tunnel walls were covered in strange markings, and the deeper they went, the more Ethan felt a low vibration in his chest. It wasn't sound, it was something else, like a warning in his bones. They reached a large chamber lit by blue fire from tall stone pillars. At the center, resting on a pedestal, was the relic, a silver orb with black lines running across its surface, pulsing with faint light. "That's it?" Ethan whispered. Lyra nodded. "Don't touch it." Before Ethan could ask why, the air in the chamber shifted. Shapes began to rise from the floor, sleek metallic figures with glowing red eyes. Each one moved with unnatural speed, their limbs bending at strange angles. "They're the Guardians," Lyra said calmly, drawing a small weapon from her belt. "Guardians?" Ethan's voice cracked. "You didn't mention we'd have to fight killer robots." One of the machines lunged forward, but Lyra moved faster, firing a single shot into its chest. The blast threw it backward, but two more replaced it instantly. "Get to the pedestal," she ordered. Ethan sprinted forward, ducking under a swinging metal arm. He reached the relic and pulled out a scanner from his bag. The readings were strange, almost alive. "Hurry!" Lyra's voice cut through the chaos, just as Ethan lifted the relic. The entire chamber shook violently. The Guardians screeched in unison, moving faster now. "Run!" Lyra shouted. They bolted back toward the tunnel, the machines chasing them. One leapt from the wall, landing in front of Ethan, its claws slashing at his chest. Instinct took over. He drew the curved blade from his belt and slashed upward. The weapon cut through the machine's arm like it was paper. They burst out of the tunnel into the burning air. The shuttle was still there, but the Guardians didn't stop at the gate. They followed them outside. Lyra fired at the closest one, while Ethan ran up the ramp. The moment they were inside, Lyra hit the controls, and the shuttle blasted upward. Through the window, Ethan saw the Guardians stop at the edge of the cliff, their red eyes glowing in the storm. He collapsed into the seat. Clutching the relic tightly, Lyra sat across from him, breathing steadily. "You did well," she said finally. "Yeah?" Ethan panted. "Then why do I feel like I just passed round one of a death game?" Lyra's golden eyes narrowed. "Because you did." As the shuttle left the planet's atmosphere, Ethan knew one thing for sure. This mission wasn't over. It had only just begun. The shuttle docked with the main ship in silence. Ethan stepped out, still holding the silver relic, his arms aching from the tense grip he had kept during the entire flight. The air inside the ship felt cooler, calmer, but his heartbeat hadn't slowed. Lyra walked ahead, giving no sign of fatigue, as if the fight on the planet had been nothing more than a walk in the park. Ethan followed her through the corridors, noticing the way crew members looked at the relic with wide, almost fearful eyes. Whatever it wasn't just valuable, it was dangerous. When they reached the command chamber, Lyra placed the relic on a secure pedestal in the center of the room. The lights dimmed for a moment as the pedestal's containment field activated. Ethan finally spoke. "All right, we got your shiny ball, now what?" Lyra didn't answer immediately. She tapped her wrist device, sending encrypted signals through the ship's systems. Finally, she turned to him, her tone as calm as ever. "Now we deliver it." "Deliver? To who?" Ethan asked, her golden eyes studied him for a second before she said, "To someone who will pay a great price." Ethan narrowed his eyes. "You mean this isn't for your people?" Lyra's expression didn't change, but the slight pause in her breathing told him enough. Something was wrong. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You told me we were recovering something sacred. Something stolen." "It is sacred," she replied, "and it was stolen. But that doesn't mean I'm giving it back to the thieves who call themselves my leaders." Before Ethan could question her further, the ship's comm system crackled to life. A deep alien voice echoed through the chamber. "Commander Lyra, we are ready for the exchange." Ethan froze. Exchange? That wasn't the word for handing over an artifact. It was the word for making a deal. Lyra's gaze shifted to him briefly before she replied to the voice. "Prepare docking bay 3. She said, then cut the comms. Ethan felt a knot tighten in his stomach. "Who are these people?" he demanded. Lyra walked past him toward the door. "People who can protect what I cannot. And people who will give me what I need." He didn't like the sound of that. Something about the way she avoided his eyes made him feel like a pawn again. A few minutes later, Lyra and Ethan entered the docking bay. Through the massive bay doors, another ship was approaching, a dark, jagged vessel with glowing red lines along its hull. Even from a distance, Ethan could tell it wasn't friendly. Crew moved quickly, preparing for the meeting. Ethan stepped to the side, keeping his voice low as he asked a nearby crew member, "Who are they?" The alien looked around nervously before whispering, "The Kavar Syndicate. Mercenaries, slavers, assassins." Ethan's blood went cold. "What do they want with the relic?" The alien's eyes flicked toward Lyra. "The relic. And maybe more." Before walking away, he didn't like the implication. When the Kavar ship docked, the airlock opened with a hiss. 3 tall figures stepped through, armor black as night. Helmets shaped like predators. One of them removed their helmet, revealing pale gray skin and eyes like molten silver. "Commander Lyra," the figure said, smiling faintly. "Always a pleasure." Lyra's voice was steady. "Do you have what I asked for?" The Kavar leader nodded, holding out a small black case. "Payment, as promised." Lyra gestured to her crew, and they brought the relic forward. Ethan's fists clenched. This was it. She was actually going to hand over the thing they had nearly died to get. As the Kavar leader inspected the relic, Ethan took a step toward Lyra. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like," he whispered harshly. Lyra didn't look at him. "Ethan, stay out of this." Her voice was calm, but there was a warning in it. "Out of this?" he hissed. "You're giving them the relic, and what if they take me too?" For the first time, Lyra's eyes flicked toward him with something unreadable. "They might," she said quietly. "If the deal changes." Ethan's chest tightened. So that was it. He wasn't just here for his skills. He was part of the bargaining chip. The Kavar leader glanced at him now, their silver eyes narrowing. "This is the human?" they asked. Lyra gave a small nod. The leader smirked. "Interesting. Rare and potentially valuable." Ethan took a step back, but the invisible pressure of Lyra's control locked his feet in place. "Release him," the Kavar leader said casually. Lyra's lips curved into a faint smile. "He's not yours yet." That single word yet sent a cold shiver down Ethan's spine. The exchange moved forward, but Ethan's mind was racing. If she was willing to trade the relic, she could trade him just as easily. And here, in the shadows of the docking bay, surrounded by mercenaries and assassins, there would be no one to stop her. The deal ended without a fight, but Ethan noticed something strange. As the Kavar took the relic, Lyra slipped a small hidden device onto its surface. It was quick, almost invisible. She was up to something. But was it a clever plan? Or another layer of her manipulation? When the Kavar ship undocked and drifted into the darkness, Lyra finally turned to him. "You're still here because I allow it," she said, her voice soft but sharp. Ethan stared at her, trying to read her. "Or because you still need me," he said. Her smile deepened just slightly. Maybe both, but deep down, Ethan knew the truth. Trusting Lyra could be the last mistake he ever made. Hours after the exchange, the ship drifted through the Kazdutha quiet stretch of space between trade routes. Ethan sat alone in the crew lounge, staring at a cup of untouched water. His mind kept replaying Lyra's words in the docking bay. "You're still here because I allow it." The thought made his stomach twist. Was she protecting him? Or keeping him until he was worth more to someone else? The soft hum of the ship was broken by a sudden alarm. Red lights flashed, and a voice called through the intercom. Multiple ships approaching. Unidentified signatures. Ethan was on his feet instantly. Crew members rushed past him toward their stations. Lyra's voice came over the comms, calm but firm. "Battle stations. Prepare for boarding." He ran toward the command deck, but before he could get there, the ship jolted violently. The lights flickered, and the floor tilted under his feet. Through a side viewport, he caught sight of sleek, black raider ships attaching themselves to the hull. Magnetic clamps locked in place. Whoever they were already inside. Ethan reached for one of the emergency lockers, grabbing a short-range shot pistol before he could even aim it. The corridor ahead exploded in sparks as armed raiders poured through. He ducked behind a bulkhead, heart pounding. Blaster fire lit up the hallway, crew members shouting and falling back. Then she arrived. Lyra stepped into the corridor without cover. Her small frame stood in the open while the raiders aimed their weapons. "Commander, get back!" One of the crew shouted. She didn't move. The first volley of shots fired and stopped midair. Ethan's eyes widened. The energy bolts hung there, frozen, buzzing faintly like trapped insects. Lyra's golden eyes glowed brighter, a thin ring of light surrounding her irises. She raised one small hand, and the nearest raider dropped his weapon, not because he wanted to, but because his own arm twisted against his will. Another raider screamed as his helmet locked around his head. Sealing shut, they stumbled backward, but Lyra stepped forward slowly, each step making them recoil like prey from a predator. Ethan had seen her stop him before, but this was different. This wasn't just control over one person. This was control over everyone in her reach. Half the boarding party froze in place, their bodies stiff, their eyes wide with panic. The other half tried to flee, but their own allies blocked the way, moving like puppets in Lyra's invisible grasp. She spoke, her voice quiet but carrying through the corridor. "You chose the wrong ship." With a small flick of her wrist, she sent 3 raiders slamming into the walls, weapons scattering. Another twist of her fingers, and 2 more fell to their knees, clutching their heads as if something was clawing inside their minds. Ethan watched in stunned silence. She wasn't just winning the fight, she was breaking them. And the most terrifying part was how calm she looked. Her breathing never quickened. Her expression never changed. It was as if she were rearranging pieces on a board game. The few raiders still standing turned and ran for their ships. Lyra didn't chase them. Instead, she simply released her control, and the corridor went silent except for the groans of the fallen. The frozen energy bolts she had stopped earlier vanished into harmless sparks. Ethan stepped out from behind the bulkhead. "What the hell was that?" he asked, his voice shaky. Lyra looked at him as if the answer was obvious. "My mind is a weapon, Ethan," she said. "One your kind has never seen." He glanced at the fallen raiders, most of them still conscious but unwilling to move. "You could have killed them," he said. "I could have," she replied. "But living witnesses spread fear faster than the dead." The crew began clearing the corridor, dragging the prisoners away. Lyra started walking toward the command deck, and Ethan followed without thinking. "What happens when someone stronger than you shows up?" he asked. Lyra didn't stop walking. "Then I make sure they never get close enough to find out." They reached the command deck, where tactical displays showed the raider ships retreating. The crew cheered quietly, but Lyra didn't smile. Instead, she turned to Ethan. "Now you understand why I keep you alive," he frowned. "Because I'm useful?" Her gaze locked onto his. "Because you see what others don't. You watch, you learn, and you adapt. That is rare, even among humans." Ethan wasn't sure if that was a compliment or another way of saying she planned to use him. But he did know one thing. He had just seen the real Lyra, the one who could crush armies without lifting a weapon. And if she ever turned that power on him, there would be no escape. As the command deck returned to normal operations, Lyra leaned closer to him. "We are heading somewhere dangerous," she said quietly. "More dangerous than this?" he asked. Her golden eyes seemed to burn. "Yes, and when we get there, you will have to decide where your loyalty lies." Ethan's stomach tightened, because in that moment, he realized something terrifying. The next challenge might not be surviving the enemy. It might be surviving her. Asterisk. The ship glided through a silent stretch of deep space. Ethan stood on the viewing deck, hands resting against the cold glass. Stars drifted by like tiny specks of light in an endless black ocean. It should have been peaceful, But peace was impossible when Commander Lyra was involved. He kept thinking about the ambush, the way she had frozen an entire squad of raiders with nothing but her mind, the calm way she had spared them, not out of kindness, but because fear was a stronger weapon than death. If she could do that to trained killers, what could she do to him if he pushed her too far? The soft sound of footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. He turned to see Lyra approaching, her small figure framed by the glow of the stars. "Enjoying the view?" she asked, her voice smooth as always. "Trying to," he replied. "But it's hard to relax when I don't know if I'm a crew member or cargo." Her golden eyes studied him carefully. "You're still alive," she said simply. "That should answer your question." "It doesn't," Ethan shot back. "I've seen the way you play both sides. The relic, the syndicate. What am I to you, Lyra?" For a moment, she didn't speak. Then she walked past him, standing so close to the glass that her reflection blurred into the stars. "You are a variable," she said at last. "A piece on the board that doesn't move the way the others do. That makes you dangerous and valuable." Ethan folded his arms. "And when I stop being valuable?" Her reflection smiled faintly. "Then you'd better make sure that never happens." Before he could respond, the ship's alarm sounded. But this time, it wasn't an attack, it was an incoming hail. On the nearby console, a message flashed. "Priority signal human." Jiang's chest tightened. Human origin. It had been months since he had seen another human face. Lyra tapped the console, and a hologram flickered to life, a man in a worn flight suit, scars across his cheek. "This is Captain Rourke of the Free Horizon," the man said. "We're tracking your vessel. We need to talk to the human on board." Lyra's gaze shifted toward Ethan, but she didn't move to hand control over. Instead, she spoke. "The human is under my command." "State your business." Rourke's eyes narrowed. "Not anymore. He isn't. Ethan, if you can hear me, we've been looking for you." "We know what she's planning." Ethan's pulse quickened. "What is she planning?" he demanded, turning to Lyra. Her expression didn't change, but the glow in her eyes brightened just slightly. "I told you before," she said calmly. "We're heading somewhere dangerous." "This is it." Rourke's voice cut in sharply. "She's taken you to the Obsidian Gate. No one comes back from there. She needs you to open it. Your biology is the key." Ethan's stomach dropped. He looked at Lyra, but she didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped closer. "You can trust them and die with them. Or trust me and take a chance." "That's not an answer," Ethan snapped. "It's the only answer you'll get," she replied. The hologram flickered as Rourke's voice grew urgent. "Ethan, listen to me. We can pull you out, but you have to move now. Once she reaches the gate, you're finished." The channel cut abruptly, the screen going dark. The silence between them felt heavier than the ship's hull. Ethan's mind was spinning. If Rourke was telling the truth, Lyra had been leading him to his death the whole time. If Lyra was telling the truth, Rourke's rescue could be the real trap. He took a step toward her. "You've been controlling me since the day we met. Maybe it's time I turned the tables." For the first time, Lyra tilted her head, not in arrogance, but in mild curiosity. "And how would you do that?" she asked. Ethan's hand slipped to the curved blade at his belt. "I've been learning. Remember? Watching how you work," he said. "And I think I figured out how to break your control." Lyra's eyes narrowed. For a tense moment, neither moved. Then she smiled, not the cold, calculated smile he knew, but something warmer, almost proud. "Good," she said softly. "Now you're ready." "Ready for what?" he asked. "To decide," she replied, stepping back toward the control console. "Because the gate is in sight, and I will not stop. You can either fight me or walk beside me." Ethan looked out the viewing deck. Far ahead, a massive black structure hung in the void, the Obsidian Gate, its surface rippling like liquid shadow. Something about it pulled at him, almost like it recognized him. He gripped the blade tighter, his heart pounding. Every instinct screamed at him to make a choice. Lyra stood there, calm as ever, waiting, for the first time since they met. Ethan realized something important. Maybe she had never truly been in complete control. Maybe, just maybe, the choice had been his all along. With a deep breath, he lowered the blade. "All right, Commander," he said. "Let's see what's on the other side." Lyra's golden eyes gleamed, and together they stepped toward the unknown.